Now, gang-related violence has plagued communities in the Western Cape, especially the Cape Flats, for years now. This prompted government to deploy the army to some hotspots in 2019. But has this actually helped the fight against gang violence? Thembisile Masuku from African Police and Civilian Oversight Forum in Cape Town joins us now as we focus on crime within South Africa. And Mr. Masuku, thank you so much for your time and good morning to you. That's exactly the question. The attempt by government to deploy the army into these problematic areas within the Western Cape province, have they actually helped? Have we reaped any rewards from this?
Yes, good morning and thank you for having us. The deployment of the military is often one of the extreme measures that any government can take to protect lives. Remember, where there's violence, there's a lot of fear from communities, and there's a lot that goes on to destabilize communities. So as a stopgap measure, government needs to do anything and everything to make sure that communities are at least are feeling safe. But that said, the deployment of the military, or even the police for that matter, unfortunately does not address the fundamentals, the root causes of why there's gang violence. So in the short term, you may reap rewards that brings about stability of these communities. But essentially, in the long term, you are still back to square one because the root causes of why gang violence or violence takes place in the first place are not dealt with by deployment of the army.
Yeah. Do we understand, the extent of the crime in the Western Cape, do you think, Mr. Masuku? When we look at the likes of Khayelitsha, when we look at, the likes of, the Cape Flats, as I've mentioned before, where there are gang-related, shootings or even gang violence, where there are hijackings, high levels of rape, how would you describe, the extent of work that needs to be done within the province of the Western Cape just to alleviate crime alone?
The issue is quite complex, and it requires a lot of multifaceted kind of strategies to deal with it. I think one of the problems that we have actually witnessed is that government at times is looking for short-term kind of measures, but in places like Khayelitsha and other places similar to it, you require a much more nuanced long-term strategies to deal with the root causes of crime. Part of it has to deal with the environmental designs, but part of it also has to deal with the huge inequalities that exist in this country.
Right.
So until you're able to deal with the issue of inequality, and until you are able to deal particularly with the issue of early child development, the issue of stabilizing families, then you are not going to deal with the crime in long term. So 15 years from now, we'll still be talking about the same thing because we're not looking at long-term solutions to dealing with the underlying causes of crime.
Yeah. So then where does that leave civilians? Where does that leave community members? Because we've also seen in the country mushrooming, how can I call this, mob justice, elements of mob justice, and protests to the likes of Deep Sloot being one of them quite recently, where community members took matters into their own hands. A man lost his life because they're saying there aren't enough boots on the ground, there isn't visibility, so they have taken the onus upon themselves to protect themselves in these very communities that are infested with crime. Where do you think that these issues, or rather this, leaves our community members?
Yes, absolutely. Whenever you see acts of vigilantism, it's mainly because communities have lost trust in the criminal justice system. They've lost trust in the ability of the police to provide safety and security. But that said, again, in communities, we need a little more investment in communities to deal with structural problems, to deal with the issues of corruption. One of the things I think that has not come through very well I've been following this discussion since morning, is the issue of corruption. Remember, the issue of corruption affects poor communities. The millions that are supposed to be deployed in these communities, that are supposed to deal with infrastructure, that are supposed to deal with issues of service delivery.
Right.
These escalate the problem, because essentially communities are not improved as a result of few people diverting resources that are supposed to go to these communities to their own pockets.
And I appreciate you raising this issue for us this morning, but unfortunately that's all the time I had with you. Thembisile Masuku, thank you so much for your time from the African Civilian Oversight Forum, joining us this morning talking about crime.